and this is a Destiny live movie night hangout. Tonight we're discussing Look Who's Back, which is a movie about Hitler waking up in 1945 Berlin with no recollection of anything that has happened in between 1945 and now. My guest is Marlen. Hi, Marlen.
Hey, Carrie, and hey, everyone. Glad to be here.
So, Marlen, would you like to give a summary of the movie, Look Who's Back?
Yeah, sure. Just a correction, because you said that it's Hitler waking up in 1945. No, it's Hitler waking up in nowadays Germany, having no recollection of what happened. Of course, throughout the movie, you get to know that he appears in what seems to be the surface of his bunker. So there is obviously the comical aspect in all of this movie that is portraying this notion of who would Hitler be in today's world? How would he be received? And this is based on a book that was written by Timur Vernes in Germany and has been very successful. The movie in itself has been quite successful in Germany. Now it's in Netflix, so you guys can watch it if you have it, and it's online, of course. And the reason why we're going to be discussing about it is because there tends to be this notion of these people in history that we vilify. Some may idolize, but there seems to be the common character that we recur to when we want to explain the most evil things in the world, and Hitler is one of them. So the movie portrays him in this point of emerging into nowadays Germany, and of course he has, as you said, like a blackout of many years. He doesn't know what has happened in current society. So it's very funny, entertaining, and interesting to see how he sees now technology, how TV functions, how he, of course, he's homeless, he has no money, how he manipulates people to get back into a position of, influence, getting into the media, using TV to start spreading messages. And I think that the most valuable aspect of this movie is not the scripted part, which is more the comical with actors and so forth, but they actually have this figure of Hitler walking across the country. They went through several parts of the country in Germany and seeing how people would react to him. He's fully dressed as Hitler, and it is fascinating to read the back notes of the movie, how the directors were amazed how throughout this over 300 hours of shooting this movie, they only had 2 people that reacted negatively to him. Of course, if I place myself in that situation, yeah, sure, it's not the real Hitler, even if he was fully in character and saying, yes, I am Adolf Hitler, everyone would laugh a little bit about it, like, yeah, it's humor, right? But because in Germany it's such a sensitive topic, I mean, it would have been cool to have a German discussing this as well, but by the Germans that I know throughout my life since I was a little girl, that was a no-go topic. You cannot discuss that. It's a very painful situation for them. And it's a stigma that is also revealed in the movie. So we will be discussing about people's reactions to him, how it relates to current Germany, and really asking ourselves whether Hitler has ever left in terms of the character, what he represented, how the world is currently at, and so question a little bit more of this character. Of course, this is more in relation to the movie itself. We won't go so much into historical aspects and that aspect, which of course we can learn from, but more in the sense of this movie. So what do you say about this movie and how you saw Hitler in this?
That was really cool. Thank you. What interested me in the movie is how everyone loved Hitler. How he went, like you said, he went across the countryside and he talked with all these people and got their perspectives on things and said, we can change this. And it reminds me of about, I would say 10 years ago, I was working at this little convenience store in the winters, and I worked with this German lady. And she told me that everyone absolutely loved Hitler. But they were so shamed by this love that they couldn't talk about it and they couldn't bring it up. So the movie I saw really brought that through, is that these people really loved him, even though it was kind of seen in the beginning as comedy. He actually did what German people wanted, which is really interesting. In that there's this, one figure standing out that's actually a reflection of what it is that we secretly want or outwardly want, which is even further fascinating, that we would demonize someone like that. What's your perspective on how people, the two people that reacted to Hitler, as compared to the people that were like, hey, yeah, this guy is actually really cool, and he wants to make changes, and he's funny, he came off as a comedian. Like, what's your perspective on this whole demonization of Hitler in the movie?
I think that, first of all, the character of Hitler, as we see it, is obviously the softened version of Hitler. It's obviously meant to be comical in a way, even though he doesn't pretend to be. But in the way that he relates to people currently is, of course, like, you walk through the movie how he sees Angela Merkel, and he's like, she doesn't have any charisma. She has the charisma of a wet noodle and things like that, and sees what is going on with politics, and he's like, what is this? Like, he cannot tolerate that notion of Germany not being what he wanted it to be, which, in a sense of a true president, anyone would want their country to be the best, of course. So, of course, he sees the current problems in Germany: immigration, the racial mixing, everyone being uncomfortable with it and not being able to speak up. So when he presents himself to these people, as you were saying, in convenience stores, in restaurants, in pubs, he pretends to be drawing people's caricature because, he wanted to be an artist, Hitler, the real Hitler. So one of the people that are shown in the movie that reacts negatively to him, he says, if it was up to me, I would not allow you to be here and I would chase you off. And he was very serious. And I think that that's mostly the people that believe that everyone should be ashamed of what happened in Germany, because, of course, Hitler represents that person that led everyone else, but he wasn't acting alone. Sure, he was the guy that moved, the guy that spoke, but there were millions behind him. So I think that this movie is more like a healing process for Germany, if anything. It has been such a taboo subject that I actually felt great that people were able to laugh about it. And yes, why not share their discontent with current politics and things like that? But maybe at the same time, as the director said as well, people left the movie theater reflecting, like, okay, what's going on in Germany? Because people might react badly. Just 2 people out of all the time reacted negatively to him, which indicates what? That Hitler, as anyone else, as any other person, could have had good things and bad things. I guess we all know the bad things as murdering, using war to get certain means, to get a country to its utmost potential, so to speak. Of course, the means weren't the best, but in the sense of what he sees is needed to be done in terms of how he saw democracy and things like that, when he goes out to people to bring up these points again, people say, yeah, I'm very uncomfortable with the current government, and I don't like the immigration point. And they are comfortable talking to him as Hitler because he represented all of that. So it is like a point of a suppressed point that I would see in the German culture that is suddenly revived when they see the figure of Hitler standing there, being able to laugh about it and hopefully reflect on it, not just like letting it pass, because it is quite a nice exercise to see also one's reactions to him. Maybe even people that say, how can they dare to make a comical situation out of Hitler? He was so evil, he was so bad. But if there's one thing that we've learned about our process as well, isn't it? That we learn to see our evil, to recognize it, to face it, to confront it, to laugh even about the things that we've done. Laugh in the sense of, man, where was I that I did that? How can I correct it? How can I remediate it? How can I prevent it next time? So I really, really like this movie because it is like a very needed process for humanity to start confronting, de-vilifying those figures that we have placed there as the sum of all evil, so to speak, the epitome of evil, and be willing to see, okay, who would they be in today's society, and see how many people are agreeing with that radicalization. One aspect is how he starts, for example, questioning what is broadcasted on TV. He says like Goebbels would be like dying on his grave, because he only sees cooking shows and funny stuff. And one says, yeah, hell yeah, media is being used for nothing else but entertainment, diversion, the MSN mainstream media that tells you nothing. So he starts questioning, like, I need to be there to tell things as they are. So what do you say on this aspect of the media and how he used it?
What stood out for me is how he didn't, even though it was presented as he was this comedic figure in the media, when they asked him certain questions, he was like Hitler. He didn't change who he was. And people would try to ha ha ha, oh, that's funny, and he's like, and he would just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And he did this with all aspects of all of the points that he was taking on. People would see this guy, oh, he's pretending to be Hitler, and then he would actually be Hitler, and they'd be like, wow, like not quite really convinced that was really, really him. Like it couldn't be, but he was so Hitler. And one of the people, like as you said, that actually reacted to that realization that, oh my God, this is really, really Hitler, and tried to remove him but couldn't. He was like just one of a couple that actually realized what was really going on, and they're so programmed, by that fear, as you said. This has been going on for a long time. With everything that he did, is him standing out as being, the living manifestation of evil. They're so programmed by that they just, it's like an immediate response. Oh, we got to get rid of him. Even though he's actually saying some very real things that are going on in Germany and things that really, really like need to be dealt with. It's like it's like also impossible to look beyond that point of, oh, this guy's just evil. We can't allow that. That's what I saw. But as far as using the media specifically, he used it as a tool. And if you look at it like today, with Hitler, with all the propaganda and whatnot, and like every possible point of communication he could use to get in touch with people, he did that. And if he was here today, I mean, he would be using the internet. He would be using Twitter. Can't you see him using Twitter? I could. Every possible avenue to get through to people. And it's something interesting that I've seen with people that are driven, is that they will invest hours and hours of their time into social media, and they'll do it themselves. And it gets them far. Like even like if you look at some musicians that are self-starters, that have made it famous. I mean, they're still doing a lot of that work themselves to get their name out there. It's that passion and that drive. They believe in themselves and they believe in what they're doing. And it's that type of a personality that's similar to Hitler, where you have a vision and you will do whatever it takes to make it happen. And in this case, it's using the media.
That's an awesome point. I hadn't actually realized how much throughout the movie I did see that as well. Like, man, he just goes with it and he doesn't stop, and he he talks people into it and he makes them like it. So that charisma, that drive, that leadership that he represents, as with everything, investigate all things, take what's best from that guy, at least in the character that we get in the movie, and from what we saw, of course, throughout history. If you investigate the good aspects, of course, that he had, there were some really cool things. Of course, the means, the ways to do it weren't the best. But if you look at the movie, he still represents that, like going straight forward, not being stopped by anything or anyone, and getting through his point. And that is something that we can learn from it in terms of how can we be those aspects that he embodied, but obviously not for the far right extremism and all of that, but to really assist to create a world that we all want to live in and that we all want to create, and be actually getting to a position of leading the way, being examples of how it is to embody these things, which is then our actual process, to really say, how can I learn something from any person in history, and not only say, no, Hitler, no, cross, never speak about it, don't look at him. No, I mean, if anything, it's about questioning further. Don't take for granted what we take in, we literally take in history books, rather investigate further what he did, what he didn't do, and generally to say, well, if a person could do this, then what would it be if we all unite with a cause that benefits everyone, not just one country, and if we act in that same leadership basis. Another aspect that I liked about the movie is how there is this fine line between making it comical. Some people refer to Borat movies and things like that, and very realistic, because at the end of the movie, without spoiling it, there are snippets of what's going on in Germany, like the Pegida group in Germany, which is anti-Islamist and anti-refugees, immigrants. So this far right is very much awake in Europe. There's currently political parties all over Europe that are winning in order to propose further extremist measures toward immigrants and so forth. This week I watched a bunch of documentaries, and from the Swedish perspective, how they deal with them and how they arrive in Lampedusa, for example, and how you see the workers in Lampedusa, how they treat the immigrants, with hazmat suits, don't want to touch anything that has to do with them. They have faces of anger, disgust toward immigrants, and no one is looking at, hey, but how come they are arriving in Europe, right? So if anyone watching this and having watched the movie in Germany and saying, look, I'm also disgusted or fed up with immigrants, rather always ask yourself, how come they are arriving at your home city now? Who started this problem in the first place? And seeing that the solution is never extremism, is never to say, look, Germany only for Germans or things like that. We have to start seeing each other as human beings. So imagine who could Hitler be if in the movie he was portrayed as this individual that does not only agree with the Green Party, because he says it very openly, which I found quite interesting. Like, people ask you, well, who would you agree with in terms of politics right now? not everyone that is currently in power, but the Greens, they have good policies. So I was questioning a bit in terms of whether that was on purpose or if it's only the producer's view and things like that. But what would it be if we could see in a movie a Hitler that decides to no more racism, no more anti-immigrants or xenophobia, but I stand for what's best for everyone, not only Germany, or maybe Germany be an example for the world to copy. That would have been a great movie, I'd say. We can still do it. We can still create if we want, in our minds if we want. But the point here is seeing how a person that has such drive, such leadership, such understanding of the problems of the world could be if it isn't just for the best of one country, one race, or just separation, but for everyone equally. I guess that's what we all have to become, even though you have people very angry at what's going on in Europe, for example, to always point back the finger at, well, who started it? Do some some research, why are these people suddenly coming from here? What is happening in their countries? Place yourself in their shoes. Would you be able to withstand that? And so, it's quite fascinating to see how Germans react to also this movie, that everyone liked it. There were millions of people that went to watch it in the first weekend, which is also saying they want to speak out. But I would say that it's mostly like a process of forgiveness that has to follow through, because it really sucks that you can see, oh my God, far right people would actually say what Hitler is telling them to do, like attack a person that is saying, go and he's attacking Germany, attack him. And people, some soccer fans in the movie actually go and attack an actor that was precisely there just to say, no, boo to Germany and something like that. And Germans actually start attacking the guy, an actor. So production had to intervene because these people were actually saying what Hitler was telling them.
Yeah.
So it really speaks and makes us question, like, how it only takes this person that has such personality, charisma, things like that to tell you something, and you go and do it because you have this idea of someone, like that manipulation aspect. What do you say?
Well, in terms of leadership, which this movie actually set out on a silver platter, this is how you do it. You gather your information, you talk with people, you find what their problems are, and you then get with everyone and say, well, how can we solve this? How can we fix this problem? What are you seeing? What can be done? And you take all of that information and you come up with a plan. And then you move that plan into action. When you take all of these people's ideas and all of these people's problems and issues and all of these people's solutions, then the people are a part of it. They take ownership of the creation process. That's their creation. You're going to stand by, for, as your creation. That's leadership. I mean, we can apply that in any type of situation. We can take it to politics. We can take it to our very small workplace. It's very simple. All you have to do is listen and hear, and not necessarily, I mean, you can have ideas of your own about how things should be done, but what you want to be doing is you want to be talking with the full group. And within that, it's quite easy to give everyone what they want and to make everyone a part of what's going on. And in the movie, this is exactly what Hitler does. That's how the world works. With war and all of the immigrants, just like you said, well, why do you think there are so many immigrants? The basic fact that we support war is why we have this happening. The basic fact that we have work in our countries that needs to be done that not everybody wants to do is why they're here. Everything's in balance. Whether we like that balance or not is irrelevant. It's going to balance out. There was another point that came up for me, but I just can't remember it at the moment. My husband was actually talking with someone from Sweden, and where they've got a lot of immigrants there, and they're actually quite happy to have them there because, as I said, they're doing the work that nobody else wants to do. And here in the United States, we're right on the Mexican border. And here, a lot of Mexicans do the work that no one else can do. Not only that, they do a fantastic job. Just amazing. And they work very effectively. And so we have politicians talking about closing off the borders, and it just that point of separation is absolutely ridiculous.
That point of there's a noise coming through, but that's precisely what I wanted to talk about as well, the figure of Trump nowadays and how he's doing the exact Hitler move. He's a great demagogue. He's really pushing people's points of what are you annoyed with? What are you fed up with? Oh, immigrants. Okay, I will build the biggest wall that you have ever seen, and I will make Mexicans pay. And that is selling a lot. I mean, if there's something that this movie makes us question is how the people react to it, and seeing what examples do we have of this kind of way of moving people through speech, through manipulation, through propaganda, and what kind of values are people agreeing with. That's the whole thing that we have to question ourselves. What are we agreeing with? What are we advocating? What are we promoting? What are we subscribing to? And if we look at the US, Trump is the perfect example. You see interviews of people that are supporting Trump, and they have no idea of where Syria might be, or probably know where Mexico is, but yeah, shoot them, kill them, build a wall, let them out, don't let Muslims in, and so forth. And it seems that we haven't learned the lesson. We haven't learned the lesson, because this has already happened, this has been done. So if anything, I would actually recommend everyone to watch this movie of Look Who's Back, and then transpose it to current America, current Germany, in essence, Europe, and seeing, okay, are we about to commit the same mistake? How can we prevent it? It's so important that we understand our own brainwashing and saying, okay, is this policy here that he's proposing what is best for everyone? Is it really meant to do good for everyone, or is it just to protect me from something that I've deemed as evil based on what the media tells me? There's a huge propaganda to vilify immigrants, Mexicans, Muslims, etc. And I would instead rather suggest inform yourself. I cannot defend people by a religion, a race, or anything. It's about looking at people in how they are, who they are, their actions, not their religion, not their color, not the ideology that they follow, but the actions that they do, the words that they speak and live. And that really relates to our process, isn't it? Like, you and I, no matter that I'm Mexican and you're American, and we are acting here as, oh, I'm the Mexican, you're the American, nothing like that. If anything, in this group, we've learned to precisely go through these barriers of seeing person as German and Australian and things like that, and saying, look, we are human beings. We have to start seeing each other as human beings. What actions, what principles do we want to stand for? No matter where in the world we are. That's the new mentality of this century, really, if anything, to change consciousness, if you want to call it that. And so see this kind of puppets in politics as people that are deliberately placed there, doing their job, which is polarizing people, antagonizing, pulling people for the sake of creating another great excuse for wars, for further dissociation. That is precisely what we have to prevent from. But you know what's also realistic about this movie is how many people agree with these individuals. Hitler in the movie, Trump nowadays, America, he's got a lot of people. So if anything, we have to stop demonizing Trump itself or Hitler itself and rather look at the people behind them, the people that agree with them, that are making them and made them who they were or are. That is the real reflection here. And just as also a little bit of a spoiler in the end of the movie, how Hitler says, I cannot die, I'm part of the people. The people made me, and paraphrasing there, like all people have a part of him. And that's so true. I mean, in any hideous situation that has happened in this world, and as I mentioned, I watched a bunch of documentaries this week, and you cannot imagine the worst things that are going on in the world, in humanity and so forth. And the only thing that brings you back here to not blame is that person is myself as well. Those factions that are fighting, the indigenous people, the government, they are both myself. What is missing there? The consideration of life. Just that, the consideration of equality. If people had that and stopped seeing each other as, oh, the government, the elite, the indigenous, the poor, the Mexicans, the Islamists, or being divided by gods and so forth, we would have another kind of humanity. And that's what we are here essentially to promote and to be, to not allow any thought of radicalization or blame or anger at one or the other. The moment we allow that, the point that you were mentioning about war, we recreate that just with one thought of saying, that's right, they deserved it. You know, they did this to us, they're invading us. Any thought of that, we are just recreating Second World War scenario right now. What do you say on this?
I agree that if things are going to change here, we have to change our starting point. Like you said, the president or our political leaders or whatever, they are a direct reflection of us. So we need to change our starting point. As I've been looking at this, with myself, I realized along the way, the whole reason that we have war is the fact that we see everyone outside of ourselves as the enemy. We're on the complete defense from that fear of other people, of what other people can do, which is very interesting. Why am I so afraid of what other people can do? It's because I know what I'm capable of doing. And it's, a part of that, moving that point of separation is recognizing yourself and other people. And not going into on the defense and seeing as though you have to protect some valuable part of yourself, because that's not really it at all. What you're getting is a part of you to look at and to understand. So if you are in a situation talking with someone and you have that response or reaction of wanting, to put up your guards with them or separate yourself from them or create issues with them or conflicts, that's because they're showing something about you to you that you're trying to hide or protect. So that's the starting point of all of this changing, is we've got to stop these things within ourselves. And once we do that, it's not only just we won't allow it outside of ourselves, or we won't allow it in our political leaders. It goes beyond that. You become a person that isn't going to trigger other people's egos or the, you know, their need to defend themselves from you, because you understand them. And that understanding is going to help them to understand. And that's how we're going to do this, is each individual at a time, assisting and supporting each other to do this, to do the same thing that we are, and standing as a real example that people will follow and people will get and people will see. And that, to me, that's how we're going to change everything here, instead of, you know, automatically going into our beliefs and our ideas about other people and what should be done. It's seeing the person as yourself and making decisions that you would want for you as them.
Exactly, that point of placing yourself in the shoes of another, it's vital, and it's missing currently, unfortunately, from most of people's minds. That's why they go and see Hitler and say, oh, you know, now I can finally express myself how angry I am at the immigrant or the person that took my job and things like that, instead of seeing, look, that's who Hitler was in terms of being a magnet to people's separation and segregation, a sense of antagonism, that enemy point of seeing everyone else as a problem. But what would it be like to be rather a leader, a person that decides to bring forth quite a radical view, which is don't see others as separate from yourself, as your enemy, as the problem. Rather see our responsibility to each other and how can we all cooperate and coexist. Of course, this is something that at the moment begins with our everyday perception of how we see another, as you were mentioning. That is like the basic starting point. Let's not even go into politics and how this could be done. It's really that one point that you mentioned. And if I would suggest to anyone doing this, I mean, here in Mexico, I don't get to see many immigrants or people from other countries that are distinctive, different, you know. There are some South Americans, and we know that they're asking for money. And just catch your reactions. How do we see that other person? Do we immediately say, who would I be in their position, understanding why are they here? Or do we see them just as a nuisance, as some people that we want just to go away in a moment? That will start defining and being at the starting point that we have to change, how we see others. So I know that, for example, in America and Europe, there's a lot of people that you see on a daily basis, and just catching, that this is the very first level of how we change the world, to see how we start seeing each other, to make that deliberate decision of, no, I won't judge. They're myself as well. No, I won't see that person as only being Black or Hispanic or Asian or African, to stop those differences and to rather see they are another me, they are another me. I live equality, I apply equality in this. Like, I literally do that many times, and they're not necessarily from another race, Judgments are so automated, even after years of walking a process. You still have to deal with those things, for things that maybe were instructed to you when you were a child. Like, I was, once again, watching documentaries and seeing poor people that arrived from Guatemala to Mexico as immigrants, because there was a guerrilla war there. And you see them and how they live, and it's like these thoughts of, oh, they seem to be uneducated, or they don't know what they're doing, or oh, they have so many kids. Those things did emerge within me, but in that moment it's like, no, stop it. They're human beings. They have a right to be here, equal right to you. Understand them, rather see why they had to do it. And so you learn, because then you understand, who would I have been if I was in their same situation, their same education, their same background, the same harsh situations that they have gone through. And this really, and through people, as we do, reading each other, learning from our stories. There's a lot of people that have also gone through immigration processes, and learning from them really sensitizes you to their lives. And that's why I would recommend watching movies, documentaries specifically that relate to these subjects. Starting with this one, just because it reflects a lot of the public opinion currently, that it's very much alive and that has to be sorted out. The last scene in this movie is really like a warning message. This is going on right now. Where do you decide to stand? That's what I would add in that last scene. Like, on whose side are you at, And so this would be some of the main points that I saw in this movie that really makes us reflect. I would recommend to watch it not in the sense of only having a laugh, which you will have invariably so, but to really try and look further into it, because there are really cool points from there to take on.
Awesome, Marlen. Really cool points that we discussed today. We're going to start wrapping this up. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
I would only suggest to people that may have any notion of hatred, spite, anger, vilifying Hitler, or even be questioning like, oh my God, they're going to be talking about Hitler. Just make a little bit of self-reflection. Okay, I won't allow these reactions or these judgments, prejudices that I may have toward Hitler topic. Watch the movie if you can, and then maybe watch again these points. Share with us what you find out in the comment section, because I think, if anything, this movie could give a lot of space for reflection, for talking with the person that you watch it, and like saying, hey, how did you react? What did you see in the movie? What did you agree with? What do you see is questionable? And specifically for German people, I would be very much interested in terms of how they see it, how they reacted, how people around them interacted with the movie, with the book as well, which was quite a bestseller in Germany as well. And to then watch our perspectives, to kind of consider not going into the side of, oh yeah, the far right, and let's build a third right again. But these perspectives of, we have to change, or else we will repeat history.
Awesome, Marlen. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being here. We're actually going to be posting a couple other links to this YouTube page or the channel, or the link, or whatever it is. This is actually my first time doing this on my own, so thank you, Marlen, for being
great,
here.
Carrie. Yeah,
Awesome guest. And also, if there are anybody from Germany that is listening to this and wants to give their perspective on that, you can for sure hook up with me and Marlen here, or on Facebook. And I'll actually leave links to like Marlen's blog on here as well. So thanks again. Everybody have an awesome day, and see you in the next take.
Bye, Harry.